Welcome to Blazing Woman Entrepreneurs. Who is truly lighting up the world with their brilliance? Find out as we explore the lives of coaches, consultants, and healers who are fire-starting their way to profitability and success in their lives and businesses. Let's light it up. Here's your host, Blaze Lazzaroni.
Hello and welcome. My name is Blaze Lazzaroni. I am the CEO and founder of BlazeABrilliantPath.com and your host of the Blazing Woman Entrepreneurs podcast. I'm so glad you're joining us today, and I have the opportunity to share with you Dr. Asha Prasad. Dr. Asha is the creator of the Prasad Method. She grew up with a strong Eastern background in a Western culture, raised in North Carolina. This presented a constant source of conflict in her life. Yet learning how to take such opposites and integrate them, weaving them together to create unification, became her mode of survival. It is her unique background that opened the door to her ability to blend various elements into one cohesive system for healing. For the last 18 years, Dr. Asha Prasad has been one of the most sought-after alternative health professionals and has built a full practice that integrates ancient wisdom with modern medicine. Thank you for being here and welcome, Asha.
Thank you so much, Blaze. I'm glad to be here and to be sharing with you today.
I want to share with our listeners, Dr. Asha and I actually have met over the internet. You all know how I like to be so transparent. And a lot of times I just get this intuitive hit, this intuitive insight of I need to talk to this person. I need to share their wisdom with all of you. And that was exactly what was happened when I landed on Dr. Asha's website. And I am so excited about, even as I read your bio, about how you blend this Eastern and Western world and with the transparency that you share about the conflict of what it was like to grow up as a little girl in North Carolina. Would you like to start there and maybe share with our listeners what it was like to be you?
Sure, absolutely. I'd be glad to. Yeah, of course. I grew up in a place that was very remote in North Carolina. We were the only Indian family at that time within, probably about an 80, 90 mile radius. So people really didn't know, I always used to joke there was black and white, and then there was us as brown, kind of in the middle, right? And people weren't aware. People just didn't know where we were from and what we were about. So it presented a lot of challenges at that time because you really felt as an outsider. Now, people didn't intentionally do that. Some did, maybe along the way, but they didn't intentionally do it. But as a child, learning to see and to constantly kind of check in with yourself. And I had one of the things that I really attribute to being able to integrating this is with my parents and my family that I grew up in, because they were really pioneers in this way of it didn't matter. It's okay. We will just embrace the culture of where we are, but still keep to our roots, but also embrace the Western culture. So from that perspective, it did present a lot of challenges because you always felt like you were an outsider. And so you learn to adapt. And that's one of the mechanisms that I learned as a very young child was to always adapt and adjust myself. Mm-hmm. Now, there's some positives and negatives to that if you want to look at it that way, because it does get you to survive and it does get you to fit in, so to speak. But you can lose yourself in that. You lose your authentic self. You lose who you are. But it was that really brought me further into lots of different life experiences that helped me weave that together. And my parents were really a good example of that. And very young, I can remember, of course, I grew up in a household in North Carolina, but we had very much a lot of the Indian cultures. I went to India quite often. Was very fortunate. My sister and I had to be able to go to India, spend time with the grandparents, and really get in touch with our roots. And then we would come back to the United States, and it was like, oh, okay, wait a minute. We have to figure out how do we fit in? How do we still stay in touch with our roots? And how do we integrate what we're learning in this Western culture? And that was very important to our parents. So they really showed a good example of that. And one of the things that they ended up doing in that small community was that my mother decided to open up an Indian restaurant. Now you can imagine between the fast food restaurants and the steakhouses, whatever else was there, barbecue places.
Uh-huh.
They were committed to sharing our cultural back, educating, inspiring other people, and giving a taste of a different part of the world to that area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that was really, when I look back on that, I'm thinking, wow, that really took a lot of guts. It took a lot of courage. It took a lot of just like, hey, we're here. We're happy to be here. We're happy to integrate, but we also want to share with you, and we also want to bring something here to help people. And people responded well. They had the restaurant for almost 20 years. People still talk about it to this day. Yeah, exactly. And it was just a lovely experience, of course, with the challenges it causes. I always think of it whenever you think about two rocks being polished underneath in the stream. There's a lot of friction that ends up happening. And I believe that a lot of the conflict that I ended up having as peer pressure and fitting into the groups really helped me learn how to deal with that friction, to be able to find the balance in that. So it was a very interesting upbringing that I had of bridging that gap constantly.
And I would venture to guess that there's probably some part of you that has learned those incredible skills from your parents, your mother specifically, as you mentioned her, about the need to really discover and embrace. Discover who you are and embrace who you are at the same time. And I can hear the conflict in that. And as you talk about the two rocks, so how did this continue to influence your life as you grew up and chose the profession you have and the way you live your life?
Well, you know what it did? It was very interesting because as I went along, of course, you can imagine when you're growing up in a household where you're learning meditation and philosophies of yoga and those kinds of things, and you go to camp with your friends. Yeah, it's kind of one of those things, you're the child that's meditating. That just it causes a lot of, like, how do I fit into this? But what I learned to do at that point is I learned to kind of switch that, to make a switch of that and say, well, this is something that I can teach my friends how to do. And this is something that we can do together. That's something that's kind of different. And so what happened is I ended up feeling that as I went along, I made choices along the way. The profession that I chose, chiropractic school, to be a doctor of chiropractic. Now, in most Indian families, we have a choice of engineering or medical doctor. And we have a lot of those in our extended family. But in my household, fortunately, my parents were very much, hey, do what feels right for you, pursue what it is that you want to do. For me, chiropractic, the reason why that appealed to me the most was because I could help people realize their internal healing potential by being able to help them, with the proper function of the nervous system and the way the body moves. But that was really inspiring to me with the philosophy. I thought that is more in alignment. I couldn't imagine myself prescribing medicines for the rest of my life and masking the symptoms, or I just couldn't see that. So it was another way that I stood out from my extended family, because we have a lot of medical doctors. They're excellent doctors and engineers and everything. But here I was, I'm going to chiropractic school. What? Okay, you're doing what? What is that?
Right.
And so I realized that what that has done for me is it has, of course, I'm not going to say that there hasn't been fear of standing out and taking a different choice that maybe the rest of the crowd is not doing, but it has led me to really be in I guess I would say, a constant state of growth and expansion. About 9 years ago, I made the decision to move countries, for example, from the States, coming to Europe. That was a huge deal, too. But it was, again, another outpicturing of things that I had dealt with as a child that I think really led me to be able to take these big leaps. And I feel that with each big leap, that's really allowed me to help people better in the work that I do.
It's interesting that you share that. My husband and I were actually having a conversation earlier this morning about when we have these opportunities to move and shift. And it's not even necessarily physical movement, although it could be, and or, moving countries, as you just explained, how much our life broadens and brings us new challenges at the same point in time. And nothing against the people that aren't moving. Okay, I just, that they're staying in the same place that they've lived all their lives. There's something to be said for that too. And yet, what I'm hearing is you've signed up, you checked the box for this rich life of living on the edge, maybe outside your comfort zone, for a very long time, since a young age.
Absolutely. I think, and I agree with you, Blaze, everybody has their own path. There is something to say about staying in this place that you were born and brought up and raised, and you end up ending your life there. That's absolutely, there's something to say about that. And I do feel that each and every one of us has a particular calling, what I call a calling. Mm-hmm. And if you're listening to that, then you can either say yes or no. You don't have to do it. I didn't have to move, for example. I didn't have to physically move. I could have just stayed where I was and would have been happy as well. But that calling for me, I signed up for it a long time ago to say, you know what, I really want to go through some transformative processes. And life presented that to me as well along the way with some challenges and some hardships. But when you embrace that, the experience is different. And it's not for everybody, but for me, absolutely. I made a commitment to myself that that's what I wanted to follow through with in order to be able to help other people along the way as well. That to me brings great satisfaction, and yeah, that just is my life's work, basically.
So share about this move, if you'd like, about how you ended up across the world again.
Yeah, again, exactly, again. So basically what happened, what led up to that is, now I was practicing in the state of Texas at the time, and very happy, things were going good. Life was good. And then everything fell apart in my life, pretty much. Okay. I lost a couple of dear loved ones to me. And then after that happened, my mother got very ill and she was diagnosed with cancer, and it was terminal. And that really shook me. That really shook me at my core, because my mother was always the person, she's a great inspiration to me because of the example that she really gave. And that really shook me to my core. And in that process, and in the process of her dying process, she imparted a lot of spiritual wisdom. The last 9 months of her life was pretty intense, but she was sharing and imparting so much wisdom with me and things for me to take further on in my life, to discover and to develop and to do something with. And it was at that point, whenever I really was at my lowest point, what I consider my lowest point, I knew, okay, it's either sink or swim at this point. What are you going to do? Okay, this is what I'm going to do. And I always wanted to move to Europe. That was a dream of mine whenever I was really young. For whatever reason, I just felt the need to come to Europe. And at that time, I made the decision. I thought, you know what? This is what I'm going to do. And so I spoke with my family about it. My dad was very much like, go for it. I'm going to support you in any way. My sister as well. Go for it. You know what? That's fine. And it was a process of just really trusting. And of course, I went and I said, okay, where can I be a chiropractor? I want to be able to do my profession. And some way or another, the little small country of the Netherlands came up. I knew nothing about the Dutch culture. I didn't know the Dutch language, of course. I thought, okay, but then a part of me said, well, why not? Go for it. And it was terrifying. I have to tell you, it was terrifying. But within a 6-month period of time, this was back in 2007, within a 6-month period of time, I came to this country. I took an intensive Dutch course within 2 weeks, learned the language very quickly, which was bizarre to me because it's a very funny language to learn. And I interviewed at so many different practices. And by the time of January 2008, I came with my 2 suitcases and I was here.
Whoa.
And yes.
That's fast.
That was really fast. And it was like downsizing your life from your house and everything to 2 suitcases was quite a challenge. But it was a very freeing experience. And in that, there was, like you said, whenever we do move and shift, our life broadens and expands, and you get to learn so many things that you may not have if you'd stayed in the same place.
You were clearly trusting some form of inner knowing, maybe guidance from your mother, or even or whatever. How would you describe it?
The way I would describe that is I would describe it, it's an internal knowing, absolutely. It is our true essential self. It's our higher self. There's so many different ways to describe it. I consider that of who I really am. And each and every one of us has it. We kind of have this protective shell around us that's kind of like our personality of how we relate in the world. But inside, there is this our true self of who we are. And whether you want to call it spirit or whatever, your higher self, that's what I was really listening to. And of course, I was listening to guidance from my mother as well, her spirit. There was a lot of that coming through for me, and I just trusted it. And it's something that I've trusted my entire life. It was very much nurtured as a child, to be honest with you, in my upbringing, to listen to that.
I so appreciate you sharing that, because I know many of our listeners may also be saying, yes, that was me, and oh, I've just met another kindred spirit. Some of our listeners might be saying, really? How do I listen to that voice? And then every range in between. And I know the work that you do, just the little bit that I've been exposed to it, seems so incredibly deep and transformative. Listen to your podcast. And how would you share with people, maybe like you did with your girlfriends when you were small? Where do you start? Like with meditation or listening, where does it start for you?
So for me personally, Blaze, or whenever I'm working with somebody or talking with somebody?
Well, whatever feels most in alignment for you to share.
Okay, well, I would say one of the things that I've seen personally in my own life, where maybe if you feel a wobble or a disruption in your life, okay? A conflict at work, for example. I'll just give this as an example. There were several years ago, I had a big conflict at work, or what I was perceiving as a conflict. And it was really kind of rattling my cage. It was just really making me a little bit nervous. I wasn't focused. I wasn't really performing optimally. And so for me, my default, my thing to do is to, as soon as possible, be able to find some stillness. And what that is for me, that could be taking a nice walk, going out in nature, just really kind of clearing the mind and breathing in the air and looking around. One of the easiest way, and I do this on a daily basis in between with patients or clients, is concentrating on my breathing, really taking it into the body, really taking everything into the body, the focus into the body to get yourself calm. And one of the things that I have found is, because I do work with a lot of entrepreneurs and people that are in management and have these really busy, hectic lives, is that they're looking for something to be able to connect with themselves in a very short amount of time because they don't feel like they have a lot of time. And the beauty about being able to connect with yourself and to really find this peace within and connect with yourself, it doesn't have to take a long time. It doesn't have to take an hour a day, 2 hours a day. It's what we do in the in-between moments that matters. And that was for me huge, because whenever I was younger, I was learning how to meditate and I was learning yoga and philosophies. And then to be able to apply that and be able to teach that to my friends, like, for example, whenever we had exams, teaching them and showing them how, hey, if you concentrate a little bit and get more still here, the answers will come to you, so to speak. It's like you could be more calm whenever you go into the exam instead of like stressed out and totally worked up. So that's the thing. You take those principles and philosophies and you apply them into your everyday life. And all of us have the ability to do that. It's just a matter of learning how to and cultivating the habit of doing that.
And you're right. It is a habit of doing that, which takes some level of commitment. And yet, the results are absolutely so incredible and so simple. Like you said, stillness. Wow. What is stillness like in today's technology entrenched world? it's very different even from when you and I were children of all the stimulation coming in. And what have you found in your life, how this practice has really supported you, this practice of stillness into really becoming more of who you are? How has it served you?
It has really served me to be present and in the moment. And in relationship to other people, it has allowed me to become connected with people, to really have deep connection. And in that deep connection, how we relate to one another, that's how we can relate to ourselves. So what I would say is that it's brought like this deepening of a higher purpose in my life. It's brought a deepening of connection with other people. And it fills your life with such richness, such a deeper meaning and fulfillment, sense of fulfillment and contentment. And that is really something that I've noticed time and time again, no matter what situation you're in, does not matter who you're relating to or whatever. If you're really centered within yourself and you're in that alignment from within, then that's all you need. You don't need to know ahead of time. We can make ourselves crazy sometimes. I used to do this, whenever I was in university, especially, I was making myself crazy trying to figure out, I need to know this. No, actually, if you'll just kind of calm down, relax, it'll come. It'll come. Of course, you have to do the work. Okay. I mean, you can't just show up to an exam and not study, but with that, it's about combining those two. And that's what it's really brought for me. And it's allowed me to really express who I am more and more and more. And it's an ongoing process.
So how does this come together relative to your chiropractic work? I mean, I love how you're just weaving the story and of I guess the word is almost opposites. And yet they're becoming this really beautiful tapestry. Share with our listeners how the part of chiropractic also looks like this weaving of opposites, perhaps, if it does or if it doesn't.
Okay, no, that's a really, really great question, Blaze. The way I see chiropractic, now, chiropractic is definitely, it is the science, art, and philosophy of making sure that the body is functioning at the optimal level. The nervous system is free of interferences. The spine is in perfect alignment. And so we're talking about getting the body from the inside out functioning as optimally as possible so that way it can respond to the environment. Okay? So that's from a physical standpoint. Now, for me, what chiropractic has done and why I was attracted to chiropractic was about the self-regulating, self-healing philosophy of if everything is in alignment and that you are working to bring that in alignment, then guess what? Everything functions at the optimal level. So that's why I was so drawn to chiropractic. If you take it to a step further, and one of the things that I saw over the years in practice was that more and more people over the years were coming to me. Of course, they were coming to me with their neck pain and their headaches and their back pain, and they still do. But 9 times out of 10, I could identify something else that was going on in their life that was also a contributing factor, be it stress, be it emotional pain or loss, or the list can go on and on and on. And I started seeing these patterns that were happening. And so through chiropractic, I was treating people, of course, with traditional chiropractic techniques, but I also use a technique called bioenergetic synchronization technique, which brings in the emotional subconscious blocks that are there to be able to release those to also allow the body to function, and using some of the Eastern philosophies and Eastern meditation breathing practices. When you integrate these, then you're really, really tapping into the holistic potential of somebody. And one of the things that I've really enjoyed over the years too is that not everybody is open to having that conversation in the treatment room. Okay. But the beauty about it is that if it's going to help somebody alleviate their pain and get them feeling better, they're open to accessing this. And what ends up happening is there ends up happening like a raise of awareness for them too. in that moment. So that's the way I see chiropractic. It weaves into that. It does seem like it would be a complete opposite type of philosophy or modality, but I look at it as it's just part of the the whole mixture. Actually, it's just part of it. It's an access point.
And so from this, have you created some of your own techniques based on your philosophies of life and living and even knowledge?
Well, one of the things that I have done that has come out of my experiences for myself as personally, but also some of the experiences that have come out with working with other people is the development of the Prasad method. Now, the Prasad method to me is a unification of these philosophies and modalities and references that really help people access that holistic potential, live, really tap into what is sabotaging their life in every way, whatever it is, relationships, work, it doesn't matter, but really getting to that core and finding out how can they be fulfilled and happy and really living healthy. Because I think one of the things that happens is health. How do we define health? How are people defining health? Most people think if I don't have pain, I must be healthy. Mm-hmm. And that's not really, in my opinion, my experience, it's not a definition. Pain is the last signal that shows up to let us know that something isn't going right. But if you don't have pain, does not mean that you're necessarily healthy or even happy. And those two go together. That healthy and happiness do go hand in hand, in my opinion, because we're really accessing all the different parts of a person.
Oh, I'm just taking a moment to breathe in all, and I just realized I said to breathe in, and that's actually what you're teaching me to do here. You're teaching me, I can really feel that even during the course of you and I having this very enlightening conversation of being present, being in the moment, feeling into where's that pain, where's that stickiness? Oh, am I happy? Oh, how do I define health? All of those things are going through my mind right now. And I really appreciate you sharing this. So as you do this work, do you work with people remotely in addition to having a practice in the Netherlands?
I do work with patients, of course, in the practice in the Netherlands here, but I also work with people one-on-one coaching. I have done some group classes online as well. One of the things I love about the internet is the access to our world has become smaller. We can have access to people across the world, just like we are connecting here today, which is just lovely. It's lovely. So I do help people remotely as well. And it's really pretty amazing how you can get the same impact and the same results for people regardless of whether they're 10,000 miles away or if they're sitting right next to you. And that's one of the things I love about the ability to work with people in this way.
So share a little bit more about this Prasad method, what it is and why you call it what it is, and how clearly you've been describing how it's come into being. I can hear it from a very early age, how it's come into being. And I can also hear why it was such difficult, perhaps, and yet easy, perhaps, decision to say engineering, no, medical doctor, no, this whole different piece of integrating ultimate health, which a chiropractor believes in when they choose this profession. And it seems like it's such in total alignment to who you are. And yet I'm sure it's not without its challenges either.
Right. Absolutely. When I think back to those decisions that I made at those times, it wasn't easy. I knew it was the right thing to do deep down inside, but it wasn't easy. And that's what made it all more worth it at the time, that I knew, okay, if I'm going to commit to what my purpose is here, then I got to go for it. That's all there is to it. You kind of get to that point where that is. And so basically why this methodology is called the Prasad method. Now, it was really funny because for months I was trying to figure out what was I going to call what I do, because what was happening in my full-time practice, more and more people were coming to me for much more than just chiropractic care. In fact, a lot of people were not coming in with physical pain. They were like, well, we heard some things about you, and I just want to sit down and talk to you. Okay, let's do that. So people just started contacting me. And so what happened is I was speaking to a good friend of mine who was a mentor of mine at the time. And he said to me, he's like, Asha, it makes sense to me. He said, think about the meaning of your name. And I thought, okay. And so the name Prasad, which is actually my father's name, Prasad, it means it's an offering. So in India, in the Hindu temples, when you go in to get a blessing, you have an offering of prasadam or prasad. And that's usually fruit or coconuts or food or whatever it is. And what happens is it gets blessed. You offer it to the priest, it gets blessed, and then it gets redistributed for everybody. It's not like you're going to get exactly what you gave, but it just gets redistributed for everybody. So, and so that is one of the meanings of my last name, Prasad. The other meaning is it's a state of emotional, spiritual enlightenment and balance for the gurus, the sage gurus way back when. That was a state of enlightenment. Prasad was one of those things. So for me, it made sense at that point. I thought, it's just in my name. It's perfect to call it this. And so when that name came about, that made sense to me. But it's about redistributing the blessings and spreading the joy and the love and the light for everybody. Because I believe that each and every one of us, no matter what we're doing in our life, whether we are a top CEO of a huge company, or whether we are in charge of the PTA, we're running the PTA in our local community. If we can access this light and this joy and spread that to people, that's what the world needs, in my opinion. And that's what I wanted to be part of. So that's how this has come about. Now, how I work with people, Blaze, is different, depends on the individual. I do a lot of one-on-one coaching. And in that one-on-one coaching, I do really assess where is somebody at that point. I get a lot of people that are in corporate America that are wanting to, they've got these great jobs, they're achieving, they're high achievers, but they have no fulfillment. They're unhappy. And they're like, is this all there is? I can't buy another car. I can't buy another house. Or, they don't have the fulfillment. So where I come into that and why they get attracted to contact me is because we get to the root of, well, who are they? How can we access that? How can we figure out what is the conflict for them? Just as I had conflicts before, what's the conflict for them? Where are they standing in their own way? And delving in deeper on deeper levels with different techniques and different procedures and different ways of being able to unravel that and get them into that state of authentic alignment for themselves.
I just want to say the words, thanks, Dad. And there are no accidents. Clearly,
right.
This has just been a part of your life for a very long time. And yet, many of us hear a call and we don't heed it. And I want to say thank you for not only myself, but also for all of our listeners and the people that you've helped. Thank you for heeding your call and stepping up into it, because it's not easy. It's not without its challenges. And yet you are redistributing the gifts, the light, the love, the insight, the wisdom with the world. So thank you for doing that.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's one of those things like we talked about. I think each and every one of us has something to offer, has some sort of gift, something. And it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter how big or small or, those are just our kind of labels that we put on it. But to be able to do that and to take the steps to do that, I'm grateful to be able to do that. And to say yes. And that's one of the things every day. It's like, what can I say yes to today? And I encourage people to really, no matter what it is that any of the listeners that could be listening today that are struggling with, whatever it is that they're kind of, on the fence about and they don't really know and they're really terrified, just try to let go and just say yes. Just say yes to yourself. Try it out. if you don't like it, you can always go back to saying no. It's you can always do that. But I really would encourage people to try to do that.
I have chosen a word of the year, I think for the last maybe 6 or 7 years. And the word for this year is actually 2 words linked together. It's called illuminated yes. And
Love it.
It really has been an adventure this year, even for me personally, to say yes to so many things that I might have said or no before. And I keep coming back to illuminated yes. What can I say yes to? And so I realize that part of saying yes is saying yes to, and that undiscovered parts of me perhaps is what you describe as you described earlier in the green room is our potential. Maybe it's, you use the words holistic potential. Could you maybe unpack that concept for people?
Right. So the way I look at that, Blaze, is the holistic potential. I look at, we've got our physical selves, we've got our emotional, our mental, and our spiritual selves. Okay. And that's all integrated. I mean, you can't really separate those. They all work together. But in order to tap into all of those, to access all of those parts of us, and this is a daily process. I mean, this is an ongoing process in our life that we're constantly trying to access every part of ourselves. That is what our holistic potential is. It's showing up completely. Mm-hmm. Not just part. We've all had that before, right? Where we come to a conversation and someone's totally closed off and you just feel it. They don't want to talk about their emotions or they don't want to share. They just have one-word answers. We've all experienced that. And that's what I'm talking about. You can clearly feel that person is probably not living their holistic potential at that point. Mm. And I've seen this time and time again, and it's amazing because it's kind of like turning on the lights everywhere. Like turning on, like if you have a Christmas tree with only one light on, it's still a pretty Christmas tree. Mm-hmm. But imagine if you start to see all the lights light up. It's just gorgeous. It's beautiful. And that's what we have within all of us to really be able to shine that brightly. And that's what I consider our holistic potential.
So how has that embraced you, or how have you embraced it as you've chosen to live in the Netherlands? What's it look like on a daily basis for you to embrace your spiritual, physical, emotional, mental, all those different parts of you?
That's a very interesting question because, in this whole process, I chose a country to come to that is not the easiest country to move into, not the easiest culture, because everybody here, generally speaking, is you need to stay the same, don't be different, fit in the box that they make for you. Mm-hmm. People just on the physical stuff, people are very tall here. I'm not so tall. People are blonde, blue-eyed. I'm not. It's just like I've kind of entered a world of a different set of opportunities for me to expand that. So being here in the Netherlands has just been perfect for me to grow and expand and really even step more into my authentic alignment than I ever was even 10 years ago. Even, I moved here 8 years ago now. So it's amazing because I am in a culture that is not, so I'm shaking things up over here, to be honest with you, with my presence over here. I'm doing things differently. I'm being myself. I'm just being in my authentic alignment as much as possible. And sure, there are challenges with that because you are in a society that's very much stay, in this box and that's it. But I'm trying to, help people and teach people, say, hey, maybe we don't need a box. Maybe we, take the box off for just a little while. And then if you want to put it back on, you can. But, so it's fun. Actually, I enjoy it. Let me put it that way. I enjoy it.
I could really sense that and feel that. And I was thinking of, well, if you were the person that could have considered coming and living here where I live in the state of California, you would have just, quote unquote, blended in, because we are a melting pot of everyone. And here you have chosen to be a leader, to step out and to challenge the box and live with the uncomfortableness for you personally of what it means to challenge the box, and perhaps sometimes the isolation lack of community at times when we are on the cutting edge leadership role. There's really a whole lot of challenges in that, and yet you've signed up for it. And it sounds like you've signed up for it for many different times throughout your life, and you've realized that this is just what you do. I mean, any other way would be perhaps boring.
Right. No, exactly. And you know what? I agree with you on that. Yes, sometimes it is, you're the only one on the path for miles. Yes, it is. But at the same time, it is about that commitment to your true path. When you make that commitment, it kind of just, you don't even question it. You just go with it, and people find you. I kind of consider it, we're all beacons of light, just shining our light. And as long as we're shining our light out there, other beacons of light find you no matter where they are. And that's one of the things I love about being able to connect with people from all over the world, because we find each other. We find each other. And I love that, because it takes away from that feeling of, I'm only doing this, I'm on my own, I'm out here on my own. It doesn't really feel like that, at a certain point.
I think you've just summarized for so many of our listeners, the people that I hear from after the podcast, that like, oh my gosh, she's one of us. I'm with her. We're together in this, because Blazing Women Entrepreneurs tend to be women and men that are, some people describe them as independent, feisty, sassy, cutting edge. These are the people that are out there and shaking the paradigm loose and saying, let's look at something in a little different way. I'm committed to doing this. I'll live through the uncomfortableness of this personally, so I can embrace what I love, which is this whole piece. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here. So one of the last questions I ask every one of my guests is, who is your favorite Blazing Woman Entrepreneur?
I would have to say, and I've had the opportunity to meet so many amazing, inspirational people. I would have to say on this question, though, my mother. Because she really, when I think back to, at that time, we're talking 20, 30 years ago, really bringing forward and saying, you know what, yes, I come from across the world, but I'm proud and happy to share my culture, and let's open up this restaurant. Let's be an entrepreneur. And she really brought a lot of light and love to this world in her short time that she was here, that people still to this day talk about. And that to me really gave the example that I now implement in my life with everybody that I interact with and people that I meet and what I want to do. And she really showed me that inspiration. So I would say that she probably is the most inspirational woman entrepreneur that I've known. Albeit that is definitely, that's something that I think there are so many people that are doing some wonderful things. And if we all just commit to that, we have so much to contribute. So very, very, very grateful for that example that I had growing up.
Well, thank you for sharing her with us and all of our listeners today, because we get to have just a small bird's eye view of how she impacted you, some of the bravery that she clearly was demonstrating to open this restaurant, and the commitment to sharing her culture in a place that may or may not have embraced it, in a time when it may or may not have been the most welcomed, and yet she did it. And how all of this continues to bubble through your life, and how she has guided you in spirit to be the most authentic, brilliant, capable woman that you are today.
Thank you, Blaze.
So how can our listeners get in touch with you? Because you have so much wisdom and insight to impart, and anyone who's interested in discovering their holistic potential using your Prasad method, they need to get in touch with you. So how can they do that?
Great. People can email me at Dr. Asha at theprasadmethod.com, or definitely go to my website, www.theprasadmethod.com. Those are the easiest way. Of course, people can connect with me on Facebook. It's Dr. Asha Prasad. If they just look me up by name, they can find me on there. And I look forward to connecting with other people that have any questions or anything. Feel free to email me and be happy to connect with people.
Great. And I just want to make the additional plug to go and listen to Dr. Asha's podcast. Just, again, more wisdom. You have almost, well, not quite triple digits, yes, yet. But
not quite.
And you'll be there really soon. She has a number of podcasts you can listen for quite some time. And go get her free gift, her 3-minute meditation. You can listen to more of her voice, and it's calming energy. I could just listen to you all day. So thank you so much for being here.
No, thank you so much. The other thing I'd like to mention is that people can also access my book. I've got a new book that came out called The Authentic Alignment, and they can find more information about that on my website as well. Some of the topics that I speak about on the podcast are really coming from listeners, coming from people that have read the book, or some of my clients that I'm working with. And that's what I really love too. So if anybody ever has any information that they want to hear about, just definitely get in touch with me. Look forward to connecting with everybody.
Oh, great. Thank you for plugging that and sharing that.
Thank you for listening in today. Remember to visit Blaze's website at blazeabrilliantpath.com for more interviews with coaches, consultants, and healers who are illuminating the world, and to learn Blaze Lazzaroni's strategic marketing, brilliant money making, and positive mindset practices too. Until next time, be blazing.